Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to another episode of the Statues Podcast. I'm your host, Denang.
And I'm your co-host, Crystal. And as usual, we got a clip, so let's get right into it.
What's interesting about being an adult is that when you become 18, nobody tells you that it's now going to be your job to parent yourself. And by parent yourself, I mean it's your job to make yourself do the crap you don't want to do so you can be everything that you're supposed to be. And you're so damn busy waiting to feel like it. And you're never going to. Your parents make you do the things you don't feel like doing because you won't. Ever. Not now, not then, not ever.
Yeah, so that was today's clip. When it comes down to this clip, and when I found it, there were ways that I wanted to take this episode, but I think one of the ways that I really wanted, and one of the things that I really wanted to talk about and discuss was how we aren't really prepped to be adults. Mm-hmm. Like when we turn 18, everyone tells us when you're 18, you're an adult. No matter what, when you're 18, you're an adult.
Yep.
But I think that's something that scares kids.
It scares me, and I'm an adult.
No, and it scares me every day. I'm 29, and it scares me.
Yeah.
We're told that we're adults, but what are we really? Are we really prepped for it? You and I think because you and I, we've been together for so long, there's still so much that we can still discuss. And I think one of the things that we discuss a lot is how the school system was. And for me, like, I'm not smart. I'm very slow when it comes to that school.
The academic.
Yeah, the academics.
The math, the science. I mean, the science and math, I feel like naturally it comes to us depending on what the job is. Like for you, you've always said it is that you learned math while working.
Yeah.
While you were working at the bank, while you were working at McDonald's, and now more so with the company, because you have to manage the money that we spend properly.
Yeah. and that's the thing, right? Is when we turn 18 and being told that you're an adult, I think that's one of the scariest things. But one of the things that I've realized as I got older was no one's prepared.
There's no book for it.
There's no book, but I think the more I started to get older and started to understand certain things, I started to have these conversations with my parents. And one of the conversations that I had was what it was like to be an adult. Mm-hmm. And to hear my own parents say, oh, they don't know. They were still trying to figure it out. And to hear my parents say they're still trying to figure out what being an adult is, it was almost comforting for me as an Asian to be like, damn, even my parents are still trying to figure it out. Because you go to high school, and high school is 4 years.
Yep.
But because it's 4 years, you technically only have 2 years to figure out what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. But it's not enough time.
It's not enough time. And I can say that with experience. I can say that with determination, because I spent 3 years after college. I went to college for 2 years, graduated. I spent 3 years in the video field, doing videography work for I spent like 3 years doing free labor work.
Like freelance, free labor.
Freelance work would say freelance is you getting paid for it. I wasn't even getting paid for it. I was going to events and just saying, hey, I'll do your event. No problem. Just let me use your name. Please, for your next event, just let me do it. I did that for 3 years. It was after 3 years that it took another 7 years for me to even establish what my career was.
Mm-hmm.
So how do people expect us to be adults and figure out our life within 4 years of high school? I'm not smart when it comes to school. I'm not smart when it comes to this whole academic stuff.
Yeah.
But when it comes to practical usage of my knowledge and of what and what I need to do in my life, yes, I will find a way to do it.
You know, I wish high school specifically, was catered more to like practical use, because I didn't get my first credit card until I started my first real job.
Yeah.
And when I got it, no one told me how to use it. No one told me certain repercussions of what would happen if I, maxed out my credit card.
Yeah.
I waited almost a month and a half before I even used my credit card after I got it, And so I wish high school had taught me that, and you and I have talked about it all the time. And I feel that high school, for people like us,
yeah,
who are not great in the academics, it's setting us up for failure, because it's not teaching us, because we're more of
practical learners.
Yeah, practical learners. We want to learn like the practicalities of, certain things, and we're more hands-on. So when it comes to high school, I feel like it was for me personally, I felt like it was setting me up for my own failure, just because I didn't understand what was going on half the time.
No, and like, I look at high school as high school should have been the experimental phase where you go and you try to figure out what you want.
Mm-hmm.
But high school became a race.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, what do I want to do within 2 years? You got grade 9 and grade 10. Within those years, that's your experimental. But you don't have much room to experiment, because within the years of grade 9 and 10, you don't have electives.
Yeah.
You don't get much. You get like what? One elective? 1 or 2 electives?
I don't know what it's like anymore, but I think you get like maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3, depending on if you take summer classes. Honestly, I felt like there wasn't enough time for me to really try certain things, because I didn't take
and I agree.
Cosmo, I didn't take Comtech, I didn't take music, like the instrumentals. I didn't take any other electives, and it kind of sucks, because had someone told me that like by grade 11, if I didn't take certain classes in grade 9 or 10, I wouldn't be able to take them then. I wish someone had told me that start, like thinking clearly, like think about what you want to do.
Yeah.
Think about how you want to use your time in high school wisely, so that by the time you're in grade 12, you don't feel this pressure of constantly going, like in grade 12, I really felt like I wasn't going to go anywhere. I wasn't going to go to post-secondary, because, what everybody in grade 12 had already known, and have set themselves up for, going to university. I had friends that I knew since elementary school, they were going to Queens, they were going to U of T, to UW, to Western. They were going to these great schools, because they knew what they wanted. No,
and just like Mochi Love here says, it depends on your school too. They say depending on your high school too. My high school is really small and super limited electives. I agree.
Yep.
It's these things that limit us as kids to later on become adults, and that's what's scary. To think that 18 you're an adult, okay, so what do you do when you're 18? That's why we stress. That's why we freak out. That's why we have these episodes of like manic depression and manic like emotional behaviors.
Yeah.
It took me almost 10 years in my career to figure out exactly what I was doing. I went from videography to audio production to artist management to, and the spectrum goes on and on and on and on and on. And it was like, great, this is what I love doing.
Mm-hmm.
But now, because I figured all that out, and that was within a span of what, 7 years, 7 to 10 years, that, okay, now I can take all these skill sets that I learned and build my business. And that's what I have now.
Yeah.
But that's the saddest part, is that took me 10 years. But when I was in school, being called stupid, being called dumb, being called not smart by, you know, like
Your
all these other kids.
and
And hearing your teachers say, wow, you know, like, you know, you're not going to make it in the world if you keep going on like this.
yeah, no, I've heard that so many times. You know, it's sad, but
It's sad. It's depressing.
For us, well, for me, I heard it when I was in elementary school. So at that point, I kind of was like, within my head, I was like, you know, I've heard it all. I've heard it all, and, you know, it is what it is. I'll just go with it, whatever. In one ear, out the other.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be like that, though.
It shouldn't. Honestly, I think that's why my company, like, when I built my company and I built it to be the way it was, why I built the structure to be so flexible was because kids don't know what they want to be. I want to be able to sit there and help you figure out what you want to do. And along that way, if you want to become a singer or a dancer, Leo, let me help you. But, you know, just like Katrina, you know, when she left the company, she left because she knew now that she wanted to be a teacher. And that's what makes me proud as a CEO, as a company, to help people figure out what they want to do. Because figuring out what you want to do within the span of the time frame that you're given by the school, by teachers, by your parents, you're not going to get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get frustrated. You're going to get angry. You're going to get depressed because you don't know what you want.
Yep.
You know, like I'm going to say it again. It took me 7 years and 3 years before that to figure out what I wanted to do and to be comfortable with what I was doing. To proudly say, I'm a videographer, I'm a photographer, I'm an artist manager. It took me that long to be comfortable. But I feel like if I had the time in school, you know, when I went to high school, if I was given the time, I would have done robotics more. You know, I did robotics in grade 9 and 10, and I loved it. I went to Skills Canada for it. And I loved every moment of it. I'm pretty sure my mom, my dad were so proud that their kid was in robotics for the first time, okay? Like their kid finally found something that he loved doing.
Mm-hmm.
That, because I was so reclused. I was so quiet. I didn't want to be around people. I hated people.
That's me. I feel you.
But it's this whole atmosphere that the school gives you. It's almost like a race. You got 4 years in this race. Who is going to get the farthest?
Yeah.
And those that don't get far, you're going to be failures.
Yeah, no, you know, like, I've told you many times.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, you know, like, she, you know, with what you said was that I felt like there was a race for sure.
Yeah.
You know, my mom always told me, finish high school, then you're going to go to university. And, you know, she wanted me to go as far as to get like my PhD, my doctorate in something, you know, so she's like, you're going to go, keep going. And then you're going to graduate just like everybody else in your age. But when I didn't, and I had left school the first time, I felt like
A disappointment.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the words. I felt like a disappointment. I felt like I failed because I had quit the race right when I started.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it felt like I had nowhere to turn to, and I couldn't talk to anybody, couldn't relate to anybody, because everybody that I had known starting, like in high school, they were still continuing their schooling. They were
still in the race. They were still going headstrong.
Most of them have gone on to, continue to pursue a higher education. They're doing their masters. And, there are times where I feel like that side of me, like comes back, and I'm being like 10 times harder on myself, and I'm like, you didn't finish the race though. Like, bitch, you're still there. Like, you should be just like everyone else.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know that it's not good for myself, and it's so unhealthy. But it's like, I was raised like that for like 19 years, and it's just like, it's so hard just to get out of it.
No, and look, I am someone that, was a victim to that system, because you look, I had very good friends, but all these friends, they were doing amazing things. Look at my family. I had cousins that were going into medicine, cousins that were going into business, cousins that were lawyers, like going into becoming a lawyer. I was the only kid going to college and for film school. And it wasn't even a renowned film school. It was like a community college. It was just the one that was closest to my house.
Yeah.
And I felt that growing up. I felt that a lot because, yes, my family does come from we come from a very traditional Asian household. But my parents are the youngest of everyone. They're still young. My mom is still in her early 40s. And so my mom was able to mold with the times and help change my dad and make him understand the way the times work now. And because of that, I'm able to do what I'm doing with their support. But growing up with all my cousins and everything, it was almost like two very contradicting sides, where it was like, yes, I have my own parents' approval. Yes, I have my own parents' support. But I also have how many cousins, like very close cousins of mine, in medicine, business, doing actual things, going to university. And it made me feel like shit. It made me feel like I put shame on my parents for being that son that didn't want to pursue what everyone else was doing.
Yeah, no, like right up until we had left, my middle sister, she's younger, so I can call my younger sister. My sister had decided she was going to go to university and pursue business, and my mom was so happy. Mm-hmm. My mom was so proud of her. Any wrong that she could do doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because because she was going to university, but she was almost ashamed of me.
No,
it sounds weird to say this, like no parent should be ashamed of their child, but I felt it. I felt the shame, and I couldn't live up to what my younger sister was doing, even if I knew that what I was doing was for myself, because I wouldn't have been able to handle it for sure.
Yeah.
But I felt the shame. I really felt the shame, and it sucks. It sucks so bad. Even now when I, talk to my mom sometimes, I could tell that, when people talk to, when they ask my mom about me, she's so hesitant to answer, or she tries to, dodge it because of that embarrassment.
No, and that was the hardest thing too, right? Because once I started dating you, not only did I feel I'd shamed my parents because of the field that I had gone into, but now I had your mom looking at my job and who I was, like I was a fucking shame to society. Mm-hmm. And so, not only did I look at, it hurt to look at my parents. That's why when I left home and I lived away, I didn't go back home because I didn't want to bring shame to my parents. I wanted to come back stronger. I wanted to come back successful. I wanted to come back and say to my parents, look, I'm your son. Be proud of me. And I know my parents. My parents love me. They're going to be like, hey, we never want something like that. We would never expect something like that. But as a son, that's what I want. I want to be able to bring home a name for my parents as an adult, as their eldest son, as an Asian who went outside of the norms and fought for what he believed in. That's what I wanted. But it was so hard because I saw you going through the same thing I was going through, but now it was directly with your own mom, and it hurt me to see you go through that.
She was not subtle at all.
No,
She was
like her
not
jabs
subtle.
are so, like her jabs are hard. Like her jabs are like, look at that guy. Or you know, like every time she would talk about her boyfriend, it was almost like a comparison every time she talked about her boyfriend. Oh, look at him. Oh, look, he owns this business. Oh, look, he's doing that. Oh, look, he's doing this for the world.
My mom treated me very differently because of that.
Yeah.
You know, like when my mom knew for sure that my sister was going to university, and both my sister and I were still going to school at the same time. Okay. She would prioritize my sister's needs. Like if she needed to study, she gets to study.
Yeah.
Like, God forbid, you know, who cares about my 20-30%, you know, exam worth, you know, towards my final grade, you know, like it didn't matter. It didn't matter because college was nothing, you know, like in her eyes, it was nothing. And it sucked. It sucked so bad. And, you know, it kind of stings when I think about it sometimes, you know, because.
No, but, you know, that's what I think, that's what immigrants go through. I think a lot of immigrants go through that. And that's what I mean. Like the clip today, you know, we brought it up. We're not ready for adulthood because adulthood comes with pain. It comes with suffering. As our parents, they try to help us through that pain and the suffering. But in doing so, it goes two ways where it's like they hurt you more because of it, or they shelter you from it. And then you get hurt even more when you get to that point. And now it's like, how do I get out? Because now you can't look back. Now you can't go back. And that was something that, you know, like I promised myself that I would never go back home. Even now, yes, I'm in the same city with my parents, but I have my own place because I promised myself I would never go back home. If I came back home, I came back home proud. I came back home as successful as I could be. And that's what, you know, that's what's so hard about adulthood is we're not ready. Yeah. I'm 29 and I think what I've gone through is a lot already. So I wonder what it's going to be like from 29 to 40. Okay, now we're going to have kids. And now we're going to see our kids go through things. And now we're still going through certain things ourselves. And so this process of being an adult, it you know,
it's different when they tell you about it and when they teach you hands-on and you go through it yourself. You know, like speaking, like this is just from my perspective, you know, like when my mom was telling me certain things, I just didn't listen because sometimes she would blow things out of proportion. Like that's just, I love my mom, but like being honest, she blew a lot of things out of proportions all the time. And so when she said certain things, for me it was like kind of like, oh, it's not, you know, it's not going to be as bad. But going through it myself, I started to understand what she was saying, even if it was not to that magnitude and it wasn't, you know, like that deep. It was still something that I could be like, oh, okay, no, I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. No, and look, that's what's hard, right? Because I think when it comes down to it, one of the things that being an adult, what it takes to be an adult is not having expectation. When we expect certain things, when we see the world as certain ways, it's almost like blinding ourselves to the rest of everything that's going to come. Yeah. You know, when I had to sit down with my parents and my parents talked about it, to hear my parents say, oh, we are still trying to figure it out. That it blew my mind.
like a
because
game
as parents,
changer.
yeah, as a kid, you look at your parents and you're like, they got it figured out. They'll figure it all out.
Yeah.
And then to hear them say, oh, they're still trying to figure it out. Every day is a struggle to figure it out. It gives me comfort because, man, like
I feel like I have to get my shit together.
yeah,
You know, like seeing how our parents are. I'm sitting there and I'm like, yo, like they look so put together. You know, they look like they know exactly, you know, what they're doing. And so especially, you know, like me being your wife, you know, like I've been with you for so long and I know what goes on behind the scenes. I know the stress, but sometimes, you know, like you're so composed, you know, like during the very stressful moments and when you really need to make tough decisions for the both of us, I'm sitting there, I'm like, damn, like this guy is so calm and collected. Like he's got his shit together. I need to get my shit together.
and I think that just comes with understanding. The more you go through it and the more you experience, I think the more you are able to grasp the understanding of certain situations. Because now when certain things happen, I know that I can't blow things out of proportion. I gotta sit there, I gotta calm down, I gotta look at the situation and see what the situation is like. What can I do? What can I not do? And these are things that you have to come to understand. When you come to understand these things, it gets easier. But one of the underlying things to understand is you're never gonna get it. You're never gonna get what being an adult is because no adult knows.
Yep.
And I think that's what's so hard is when we're kids, we're expected to know what an adult knows. So when we're told at 18, you're going to be an adult. At 18, you're an adult. At 21, you got to get your shit together. At 25, you got to get married. At 30, you should have kids. That stress is crazy.
It is. It really, really is. You know, like I feel like for our parents, you know, growing up during that time, getting married young was kind of like the thing. Like get married young, you know. I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth, okay? So, but some families are like, you know, like it's okay. You don't need an education. You know, just get married, start working, have a family, and that's it. That's life.
Yeah.
You know, but for us, for you and I, we weren't raised like that. But sometimes when we see that kind of like reaction right in front of us, it's like oh shit, like there are some people that still think like that. Like how do we deal with that? Like my mom's like that, you know.
It's hard, right? Because there are certain aspects that you can control as an adult, and there are certain things that you can't control.
Yes.
And one thing that I had to learn to do was to stop controlling things that I couldn't control. Yeah, you know, it's funny to say this, but you know, like I'm a control freak. I like to have control over my life.
Hey, I do too.
No, and it freaks me out when I don't. That's why I don't do drugs. That's why it's so hard for me to do like things like that, because it scares me to think that I'm not gonna have control.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, like one side, like even drinking. We like between the two of us, we don't, you know, take drugs. We don't drink. You know, we don't do any of that. Like, you know, occasion, you know, family parties or weddings, then we a little bit, but like leisurely we don't, because we're just the type of people that like we really need to have a grasp on reality, because the minute it's out of our control, we start going I can't say ape shit crazy, but we start getting like
I get very anxious.
Yes. You know, that's the word.
And that's the thing, right? Because growing up, there was these expectations of what an adult should be, especially in an Asian household. I'm the eldest son, so what I was told growing up was, this family is yours. You have to protect it. And you know how Asian parents are. Oh, when I die.
Ah, yes.
Oh, it's when I die that you have to step up to the plate. You got to do this. You got to do that.
Yeah, my dad said that to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like very young.
And so I grew up with a lot of that. And I grew up with that burden inside where it was like, okay, so if I have to do that, I need to be successful before a certain age so that I'll be okay, so that my family will be okay.
Yeah, no, I think my dad told me that, and then my mom said somewhere along the lines too, is that, you know, when I die, or, you know, like, once you're done school, you know, like, this is your responsibility, you know, this is your family you have to take care of. You have to, you know, like, take care of everybody. But, like, at whatever age you heard that from, you know, for me, I heard that when I was 10. You know, like, I can barely decide what I want for breakfast. How are you entrusting a person who don't know what they want for breakfast with, you know, the responsibility of, you know, taking care of a family? You know, like, it sounds crazy when I think about it now. You know, for me, I was kind of like, okay, yeah, no, don't worry, I'll take care of the family. You know, like, for my dad, he's always like, when I die, you have to take care of the family. You have to look after your mom. You have to look after your sister. And for me, I'm like, yeah, no, okay, don't worry, I'll take care of them. But now, as an adult, you know, like, you know, being married and, you know, moving out of the house, I'm kind of like, that's ridiculous. Like,
it's crazy.
It's crazy because for, you know, my parents being Asian, there was that huge emphasis of, you know, even though my parents didn't let me work and they wanted me to finish school, it was more so, you have to be an adult now. You know, these are like that's the reason why they wanted me to, you know, go do, like, they wanted me to go into the healthcare field, or, you know, do business, or, you know, be a lawyer and all that. Was, you know, like, to be an adult, think like an adult. How can you make money? You know, like, how can you make money, take care of yourself, pay your bills, and, you know, XYZ. And it's crazy that at, like, such a young age, now talking about it and thinking about it, it's like, why?
No, and like, I grew up, and my parents, and once again, you know, my parents are pretty progressive. So growing up, my parents tried to teach us everything that they could. And one of the things that I was taught was, you know, like, life doesn't just operate around your life. Life is going to operate whether you want to or not.
Yes.
And that, you know, my parents made us work the moment we could work. And, you know, I started working I started working when I was 16 all the way until 22. And I only stayed at one job. I stayed at McDonald's because, you know, my dad had taught me it's the same shit in a different pile. And that was something that I really took to heart, was same shit, different pile. And I started to understand what that was, where it was like, as an adult, when you work for someone, you have no control. You got no control over anything. And so what's the point of leaving this job to go to another job where you have no control? If you're going to do it, then just work hard at that one job.
And climb the ladders.
And so that's what I did. You know, I worked at McDonald's as a cashier, worked my way all the way up to management. And what that taught me was shit like that, I didn't care for it. I was manager, and right in front of the manager's face, I was like, fuck this shit. I'm not going to be manager. I'm going back down to crew. And that was the first time, you know, that's the first time a manager fucking, like, looked at me and was like, what? Are you serious? I'm like, dead serious. Yo, fuck this shit. It's literally same, you know, like, same shit in a different pile. It just, now I got more shit.
Yeah.
So, you know, and like, I started working, and these are the things that, like, I started to understand was like, oh shit, like, there are life lessons in everything that I do. The simple things of working at McDonald's, I started to understand more about myself. Oh, I'm a practical learner. I'm not an academic learner. I started to understand, oh, yo, I sucked at math. I sucked at math so bad that I failed grade 11, the easiest level of math. I failed that.
College math? I think that's the easiest. That is the easiest.
And I failed that. And it was like, okay, so am I fucking stupid? But then the things I started to understand about myself was, no, you're not stupid. you're just very different from other people. And okay, so why are you different? Well, I'm a practical learner. I started working in a bank, and I started to realize, oh shit, my math is pretty damn good. Like, I'm actually good at this shit. Okay, so now I started to understand more about myself. But these are things that I, like, for me, my own opinion, school doesn't teach you how to be you, what you looks like. Mm-hmm. School teaches you the overall thing of, this is what a student is, this is what a teacher does, this is what school should be.
Yeah.
But school isolated me from everyone else, and I felt like a stranger when I went to school.
I think it's because school put a huge emphasis on who you will become. Like, it dictates you, like, on where you will go, how you will become, based on grades. Like, grades is like, I don't know about you, but for me, it was a huge thing.
No,
like,
grades was a huge thing.
I felt it. Like,
the report cards was the worst time for me.
Yes.
Because I knew what was coming. I knew that I was gonna get an ass whipping when I got home. But and that was the shitty thing, was my sister was an academic learner, so A's all the way, and she's only a year younger than me. Mm-hmm. And so when we went to school, and this is where, like, comparison came along.
Yes.
I went to school with my cousins too, so they're not that much older than me. Mm-hmm. So when my cousin, we all got the same teacher, but that teacher got my cousin first, and he's an academic learner, coming out with 90s, 80s, like high 90s. Mm-hmm. My sister comes along, she's getting high 90s. I come along and I'm getting like 40s, 50s. And what I hear from the teacher is, are you sure you're a Vang? Yeah. And that was the first time where it was like, oh, fuck. Yo, am I fucking retarded? Like, am I stupid?
Yeah. No,
like, these teachers, like, they make you feel so stupid.
Yeah. No, I had a religion teacher. He was a great teacher, though. Like, straight up, he was really good at really playing like devil's advocate for certain things. Okay. Mm-hmm. But we were doing a group assignment, and he said, okay, these are the 4 grades, because it was a group of 4. These are the 4 grades. Okay, now you tell me which one do you deserve. And the lowest mark was like, I believe it was like a 65. I got a 6. I was one. But he's like, okay, this is the shittiest mark. Like, he straight up just said, like, this is like the lowest mark. This is shit. Okay, so now you talk amongst yourself, and now you guys all decide who deserves what grade. And I think after that class finished, I went to my next class, but I had to excuse myself because I went to the washroom and I started crying right after because I felt so dumb. Like, it's a religion class. Like, there's no way that you should be getting like a grade like that, you know? Like, I felt that way, but, you know, like, for me, it sucked. It sucked so bad. Like, I remember crying so much because I'm like, is this what my life is like? Is this how people see me, as like an idiot who couldn't contribute to, you know, like, the group? Like, and look, like, that's what I think is one of the hardest things about being an adult, is we are conditioned to be this way as we grow up. Elementary school, high school, even college and university. College and university is all about the number. Who's walking out of that with the highest grade? Yeah. You know, and it was like that for me too, going to college. I put hours into it. This is the most that I've dedicated to my schooling in my life. I put hours into it. I went to school at 5 a.m. The moment the doors opened, I was in. When the doors closed, I was still there. I was there, like, sometimes I was at school till like 1 a.m, doing projects, working, busting my ass. You know what sucks? When your teacher has a favorite and they don't hide it very well. Mm-hmm. I had one teacher in one of my culinary class, and like I said, great teacher, friendly guy, but you could clearly tell the guy had a favorite, and it sucked so bad, you know, like when you're in a class that you enjoy, you know, like you really love it, but it's clearly obvious that they have a favorite and everyone else is just mediocre in their eyes.
But that's life. In life is going to have favorites.
Yeah.
There are going to be people in life that are going to be granted everything that they want, and there are going to be people in life that are going to get the shit end of that stick.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because it's like that, you know, to expect anything is to expect failure for yourself. You know, like, I'm prepared for my failures. I'm prepared for my successes. I'm prepared for all this shit to come because I've got that shit end of the stick, where it was like all of the lessons that I learned the hardest way possible as an adult. Shame, I learned that the hardest way. Greed, learned that the hardest way. Ignorance, learned that the hardest way. These are things that, you know, some people are blessed with and never have to go through.
I know some people have it so, and I'm not saying it's their fault, okay? But like some people have it so easy. Some people just have it like straight up rough, you know. But there are some, most people sometimes don't know that, you know, what they have is easy, or what they're going through is rough, because they're just seeing it from the other side. That some people can, if they have it like the worst, but they're in a different mentality and they're like, oh, you know, it's okay, you know, like it's nothing. You know, like, I truly commend them, because I wouldn't be able to do that.
That's difficult, right? Because I see people now, and all, like, a lot of these Asian kids are going through that phase where it's like, I don't want to do what I'm doing, but the expectation is there. You know, their parents have this set expectation, and they are following this expectation. And what it leads to is happiness for them, but does it lead to happiness for you? That's what's going to eat you later, right? And that's what some people have to understand. Like, that's why it took me so long for me to figure out what I was doing in my life. It took me 3 years working videography to figure out that, oh, wow, I really like audio production. Okay, great. Learned audio production. Now, oh, I like making music videos. Great. Let's get back into music videos. Through music videos, it's like, now I want to do artist management. I really like working with these guys.
Yeah.
And this is what life is going down this trend of, what do I want to do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, life is about, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna come out of this alive? And that's what some people have to understand. You're not, if you listen to expectation, you will be a failure. You will fail those that have expected certain things from you.
Yes, and I say this, I agree with this from experience. Like, I completely agree, because like my mom specifically said, you know, like, this is what I expect of you, you know. And when you have kind of like that mold that you have to fill in, you're already put under stress, knowing that there is an expectation, that there is certain like requirement that is needed from you, you know, from your parents or your family. And then when you don't, or you don't feel like it, you don't feel like it's you.
Yeah.
You are it's really like setting yourself up for failure, you know, like.
And that's one of the things that like, when it came to my company and the podcast and everything, right?
Yeah.
This is why I built it to be this way, was so that we understood what statues represented, that everyone was a statue in their own right, that no matter what, expectation wasn't going to bury you alive.
Yeah.
That everyone's got their own set path, that we as individuals that come from communities, cities that represent what we want to represent, can represent it proudly without expectation bringing us down.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's why I created Statues Collective. That's why I created the Statues Podcast, was so that we could talk to people that pass those expectations, that pass those limitations that were put on them.
Yeah, like there a lot of people go through it and they talk about it with their close friends or their family, somebody that they trust, but there aren't a lot of people, I feel like, for me anyways, that aren't willing to talk about it to like a bunch of strangers, you know, like, and but it's not a bad thing. I get it. I cannot be mad at them because I do, but I feel like there are people that are going through this that really need to hear it. You know?
And that's why, like when it came down to why I created the Statues podcast was for this one reason of sometimes you can't go to the people that are so close to you. To be vulnerable to them hurts. To be vulnerable to them almost cuts you.
Yeah. Because
these people, when they look at you as a certain way. They look at you as powerful. They look at you as someone that they can trust, someone that if they share their broken heart with, that you yourself are strong enough to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
But when your broken heart and their broken heart come together, it's almost like, oh, now I feel bad. But that's why, I created the Statues podcast and I created Statues Collective was because every statue has a meaning. Every statue has a, like when you think about it, they have a statue of Bruce Lee. They have a statue of the Statue of Liberty. They have these statues to represent something. But we as individuals represent something too. Every individual in the world represents something. But are you strong enough to continue to represent that without expectation, without this sense of failing because people expected something?
Yeah.
Like, I created Statues Collective because I believe that every individual in this world has something to say. But now, I want to hear what everyone has to say. And I want to see what everyone can do and to take it up to that level where for every community that we have, there is a statue in it of everything that they represent. So when we look at that statue, we understand, wow, you represent this and you represent that. Like a lot of people, when they look at Bruce Lee, Bruce Lee represents how much things for everyone.
Yeah.
What people don't understand was that Bruce Lee was cheating on his wife. But now, if you look at Bruce Lee and why he was a statue, he was a statue because as Asians who was in that time bullied, beat up, Bruce Lee stood for what we couldn't do. He stood up to people. He made a mark in the American market. He stood up as an Asian man and said, "Yo, I'll kick your ass." And that's what I loved about him. That's what gave me strength as a kid, was looking up to someone like Bruce Lee and being like, he could do it. I can. This is why I think statues is something that could rise above me. I don't have to be here for Statues Collective to continue to exist. That's what I want. I want Statues Collective to continue to exist even after I die and even after my legacy is gone.
Because it's not about your legacy. It's about the legacy of people who have been a part of it. It's their legacy, exactly. Not just you. You are just a part of the story. You're along for the ride. Doesn't mean that is specifically you. It's everybody else. It's what makes Statues Collective.
Yeah. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about it. That Statues Collective is not just people. When it comes down to Statues Collective, I'm so proud of how far it's come, just because it came from everything that I suffered from.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have confidence. I didn't have a name. I didn't have people to go to.
Mm-hmm.
But after creating Statues Collective, I was able to find my confidence and I was able to find my footing and continue on this path to try and help people. I don't want to be recognized for helping people. I just want to help people because I realized when I needed help, no one helped.
Mm-hmm.
When I was suffering in silence, I suffered in silence. But those that suffer in silence, I want to be able to go to so that they can scream everything out and say something.
Yeah.
Because I believe it. I believe that everyone has something to say, even when you're in that kind of a position. Being an adult isn't easy. We're told that an adult is this way and that way. But every day living and finding purpose, surpassing expectation, surpassing your previous failures, that's what being an adult is. Being, trying to manage your life, trying to find peace, comfortability, so that others can look at your life and look at what you've done and just say, wow, I strive for that. It could be the most simplest person, a guy that lives carefree. I look up to him. One of the things that I appreciate in my life was my ability to just be able to talk to random people. Because when I got the chance to talk to a homeless man in Toronto, yeah, he sounded kind of crazy, but you listen to how he was, and it makes you realize that, damn, like, I'm privileged. I'm privileged to have what I have, to be where I am. As an adult, we just don't understand certain things until it happens. And when it happens, are we strong enough to pick ourselves up?
Yep. I feel like that's like the deciding factor, is that when the problem is right in front of you, how do you overcome it?
Yeah.
Because that, I feel like, can do so many things. It can strengthen you so you can be stronger, so that if it happens again, or if another problem comes, you're equipped for it. You are a stronger person now than you were last time. Yeah. Or it could break you down because you just don't know how to go about trying to like fix the problem.
Mm-hmm. No, and I 100% agree. When it comes down to, I think it's easier for you and I, just because you and I, we've gone through situations where we've had to try and figure out what being an adult was. It's not easy. It comes with a lot of fucking complications, comes with a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
But the one thing that you and I, we couldn't do was give up. And that's what people need to do, is just not give up. Understand that where you are, it might seem like the bottom of the barrel. It might seem like a damn long pit. It might seem like garbage. But where you are, you're still afloat. You're still alive. You're still kicking.
You're still breathing.
Exactly. We know so many people that gave up.
Yeah.
But when you give up, what happens is there are people here that will remember everything that you were. Everything that you are. An adult cannot give up. No matter how hard a situation gets. I wanted to say thank you to all of our listeners. This is the first time that we've streamed on Twitch.
I know. It's so weird.
It's weird, but
whoever has been watching us the entire time, thank you for staying with us this long, because honestly, I was just expecting, like, this is, like you said, this is the first time that we've streamed for me personally too. So I don't know. It's like,
it's weird.
It's weird. It's very weird.
We wanted to be able to reach a more wider audience.
Yeah. And like, it's like having a conversation. If there's anything that you guys, or whoever's watching now want to add, just comment too, comment along with us, so well you're keeping track of the chat, so just come have a conversation with us.
And you know what, speaking of Statues Collective, we got an OG here, Toshio. Thank you, Toshio.
Hey, how are you?
Oh man, when we talk about Statues Collective, Toshio is someone that helped build Statues Collective from the ground up.
Yo, day one.
Yeah. So, I'm appreciative of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's nice to hear from you too, Toshio. It's been great, and it's good to hear from you again.
I know, it's been like forever. It really has been. Like you and I, weren't close, but still, like, you're part of, the Statues family. Like,
Yep.
You've been with us since the beginning.
Well, if we stream on Sundays, you'll listen, so maybe we'll start streaming on Sundays. We'll be streaming multiple times. We're just doing this today to see how it was, but it looked like it turned out well, so.
Yeah, no, maybe he's the consistent viewer.
But thank you so much to all the listeners and viewers of our podcast. Our podcast is actually, I think this is going to be episode 56 or 7.
I've lost track,
Me
honestly. Too. We just record, and we just post up, so it's kind of, it's like a job, but a job whenever
we enjoy.
Yeah, we enjoy, but really because we have a busy schedule,
Yeah.
Now that I'm going back to school, I'm kind of just like trying to find time, because I realize, you and I have talked about, setting up a schedule for,
It's
posting, recording. It's very hard because once one class is done, I realize I have to do something else for another class, and it's just constantly piling. So I think streaming seems to be better.
Yeah.
Because
it's a lot easier.
It is. So,
but once again, thank you all to all the listeners and viewers of our podcast. I appreciate the one viewer, the one like, the one listen. I appreciate each and every single one of you guys. You guys are why we do this. You guys are why we share our story and share the stories of future statues that, exist within our communities. And we hope to bring more onto this platform. Thank you guys so much. You guys can follow all of our
social media.
Yeah.
We'll have it linked somewhere in
it's actually on the bottom of the screen there.
Yeah, there. Or,
Yeah.
like if you have
In the links too.
if you've set up your profile, then it's probably somewhere in the bio or about me, or I don't know how Twitch works.
Yeah.
So.
But thank you guys so much. This is your host and your co-host signing off. Bye-bye.